Have you ever wondered what it would feel like to live in a state of complete peace? A life where no insult, no challenge, and no chaotic circumstance can disturb your inner calm. Imagine walking through the ups and downs of life with a sense of serenity so profound that nothing external has the power to shake you. Sounds too good to be true. But what if I told you this kind of peace is possible? Today, we're diving into 10 transformative Buddhist principles that can help you build a deep, unshakable inner peace, one that no external force can touch. Imagine a world where you don't react to every comment, every setback, or every unexpected twist that comes your way. Where, no matter the storm outside, your heart remains still. Buddha once said, "Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without." But what does that mean? And how can we apply it in our fast-paced, often overwhelming world? What if the secret to true peace lies not in changing the world around us, but in transforming how we respond to it? In this video, we'll explore powerful Buddhist teachings that guide us on how to shift our mindset, let go of attachments, and cultivate a sanctuary within ourselves, one that remains untouched by the chaos of life. Whether you're dealing with stress, criticism, or just the constant noise of daily life, these principles have the potential to radically change how you experience the world. So, if you're ready to unlock the secret to living with unshakable peace, stay with us. It's time to take the first step toward mastering the art of inner tranquility. Principle 1. The power of words and emotional resilience. In Buddhism, it is taught that insults and offenses only hold power when we allow them to. Think of a thick forest on a calm morning. When the wind blows through the trees, the branches sway and rustle, creating noise and disturbance. But as the wind passes, the forest quiets once again, returning to its peaceful state. Similarly, when someone insults or offends us, their words may cause a temporary disturbance in our emotions, but we always can let those words pass and return to our inner tranquility. Buddha wisely said, "Holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die." This metaphor encapsulates the truth that when we cling to anger, bitterness, or resentment, we are the ones who suffer, not the person who insulted us. Most often, the words of others are a reflection of their emotional state, issues, or struggles, not an accurate reflection of who they are. For example, when someone speaks harshly to us, their words might come from their frustration, insecurities, or stress. This understanding allows us to respond with compassion rather than anger, recognizing that their outburst is more about them than it is about us. We begin to see the person's comment as a reflection of their struggles, and not as a direct attack on our character or worth. When we do this, we can remain unaffected and let go of the negativity. It is like the pond after the stone's ripples fade away. It naturally returns to a peaceful state. The important lesson here is that the power of insults is entirely dependent on our response to them. We are the gatekeepers of our peace. For instance, there was a time I was deeply hurt by a colleague's rude comment. Instead of reacting immediately, I paused to breathe and reminded myself that their words were a reflection of their own frustration, not a judgment of my character. By doing so, I was able to maintain my inner calm, respond thoughtfully, and not let the situation disturb me emotionally. This practice of emotional resilience is not just about avoiding conflict, but about learning to protect our peace, no matter what others may say. By practicing this principle, we learn to disarm the power of words. We stop allowing others' negativity to control how we feel. Over time, this shift in perspective leads to emotional freedom, where we no longer carry the weight of others' words, and our peace becomes unshakable. Principle 2. Embrace every interaction as a lesson. In Buddhism, the idea of seeing each person we encounter as a teacher is a profound and transformative concept. However, rather than merely learning from others, the deeper practice lies in embracing every interaction, whether positive or challenging, as an opportunity for growth. Each encounter is a lesson in disguise. Whether it brings us joy, peace, or difficulty, we can always extract something valuable if we shift our perspective. Buddha's wisdom reminds us that when you watch after yourself, you watch after others. When you watch after others, you watch after yourself. This means that every interaction, no matter how it unfolds, offers us a chance to become more aware, more compassionate, and more resilient. When we approach life with this mindset, every experience can become a tool for inner growth. If we are attentive enough, we can learn something from even the most difficult situations, transforming them into opportunities to strengthen our character. By embracing every interaction as a lesson, we stop seeing people as obstacles or challenges and instead begin to view them as mirrors reflecting aspects of ourselves. Similarly, in our own lives, every person we interact with, whether they challenge us or support us, can teach us something valuable if we are open to learning. When we encounter someone kind or loving, we can learn about the beauty of compassion and human connection. But more importantly, when we face criticism, anger, or unkindness from others, we are presented with the opportunity to develop patience, humility, and non-reactivity. Take, for example, the teachings of the Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh. He frequently speaks about the transformative power of mindful listening. When faced with someone upset or angry, instead of immediately reacting with defensiveness or judgment, Thich Nhat Hanh encourages us to listen deeply, not just to their words, but to their underlying emotions. This is a powerful reminder that even in difficult interactions, we have the opportunity to practice deep listening, compassion, and mindfulness. By doing so, we create space for understanding and peace, rather than fueling further conflict. On a personal level, I've applied this principle in many of my interactions. I recall an instance where I had a tense discussion with a colleague who criticized my approach to a project. Initially, I felt hurt and defensive, but then I paused and reflected on the situation. Rather than reacting from a place of hurt, I asked myself, what can I learn from this moment? In doing so, I realized that the criticism, while painful, allowed me to reflect on how I could improve and grow professionally. I didn't see the situation as an attack on my worth, but rather as a chance to hone my communication skills and become more receptive to feedback. This shift in perspective is essential when we embrace every interaction as a lesson. Instead of allowing others' behavior to determine how we feel, we begin to take responsibility for our responses and use every encounter to improve ourselves. The key here is to remain open and curious, to ask ourselves how we can grow from the situation, regardless of whether it is easy or difficult. Embracing every interaction as a lesson doesn't mean we suppress our emotions or tolerate harmful behavior. It doesn't mean we allow ourselves to be mistreated or disrespected. What it does mean is that, rather than reacting impulsively or emotionally, we pause, reflect, and consider how we can respond with mindfulness and compassion. We view the situation as an opportunity for growth, which enables us to navigate life's challenges with grace and wisdom. An important aspect of this principle is realizing that the person who triggers us may not be the true source of our discomfort. Rather, it is our reaction to them that is the source of our emotional disturbance. By embracing the lesson in each interaction, we learn to take responsibility for our emotions and to understand that others' behavior is often a reflection of their struggles, not a personal attack. This realization empowers us to respond from a place of understanding, rather than reacting from a place of ego or defensiveness. For example, if someone makes an unkind comment to us, instead of immediately becoming upset or retaliating, we can pause and remind ourselves that their words may be a reflection of their own pain or frustrations. This shift in perspective helps us to respond with empathy rather than anger. In this way, we not only protect our own peace, but also offer the other person the opportunity to be met with compassion rather than further negativity. This practice also helps us develop deeper emotional resilience. When we stop seeing people as obstacles to our happiness and start seeing them as teachers, we cultivate a sense of inner strength that is not easily shaken by external circumstances. By seeing every interaction as a lesson, we shift from being reactive to being proactive in our emotional responses. This empowers us to stay grounded and centered, even when life presents us with challenges. Incorporating this principle into our daily lives also enhances our relationships with others. When we begin to view each person as a teacher, we become more open-minded and compassionate. We no longer see people as either allies or enemies, but as fellow travelers on the path of life, each offering their unique lessons and insights. This fosters a sense of unity and interconnectedness and deepens our capacity for understanding and love. In conclusion, The practice of embracing every interaction as a lesson is a powerful tool for personal and spiritual growth. Whether an interaction is pleasant or difficult, it holds the potential to teach us something valuable if we are open to learning. By viewing life through the lens of learning, we can transform our relationships, deepen our emotional resilience, and cultivate a greater sense of inner peace. As we adopt this mindset, we begin to see challenges not as burdens, but as opportunities to grow and become more grounded in our compassion, wisdom, and understanding. Principle 3. Turn envy into inspiration. In Buddhism, one of the key teachings is transforming negative emotions into positive ones, and this principle is especially powerful when it comes to envy. Envy is a natural human emotion, but rather than letting it fester and control our thoughts, Buddhism encourages us to see it as an opportunity for growth. Instead of harboring jealousy towards someone else's success or qualities, we are encouraged to turn that envy into emulation, or better yet, inspiration. Buddha's guidance on this is clear. Do not be jealous of others' good qualities, but out of admiration, adopt them yourself. This idea invites us to shift our perspective and, instead of seeing others as threats or rivals, view them as sources of inspiration for our personal development. When we feel envy towards someone, it's often a reflection of our desires or unmet aspirations. Envy arises when we perceive someone else as possessing something we want, whether it's success, qualities we admire, or achievements we wish we had. But rather than letting this feeling drag us down or push us into self-doubt, we can use it as a powerful motivator to better ourselves. When we admire something in someone else, we can transform that admiration into action by striving to embody those same qualities or by pushing ourselves toward our own goals. This shift is crucial because it encourages self-improvement and personal growth, rather than comparing ourselves to others in unhealthy ways. Envy often creates a sense of competition, but transforming that envy into inspiration removes the competition altogether. We no longer need to view others' successes as obstacles to our own. Instead, we can look at them as opportunities to learn and grow. The concept of turning envy into inspiration is not new to Buddhist teachings. It's deeply embedded in the teachings of great Buddhist figures. For instance, the famous monk and teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh, has often spoken about the power of mindfulness in transforming our emotional reactions. He encourages us to examine our feelings, such as envy, with awareness and compassion. When we feel envious, instead of reacting impulsively, we can take a step back and observe the feeling without judgment. This mindful approach helps us separate our emotions from our identity and gives us space to choose a more positive response, emulating the qualities we admire in others rather than resenting them. For example, imagine a situation where you feel envious of a colleague's success. Perhaps they've received a promotion or recognition that you also desire. The natural, human reaction might be to feel slighted, to question your own abilities, or to focus on how unfair it is. However, this mindset only drains your energy and prevents you from moving forward. By shifting your focus, you can instead view their success as a source of inspiration. What qualities in them help them succeed? What can you learn from their approach? Perhaps they have skills you admire, skills that you can also cultivate. In this way, you no longer see their achievement as a threat to your success, but as a guide to how you might elevate your path. This principle of turning envy into emulation is especially powerful because it fosters a mindset of growth and self-compassion. Rather than feeling bitter or resentful, we choose to see others' success as proof that success is possible and that we are capable of achieving similar accomplishments. This positive outlook not only benefits us in terms of personal development, but also helps us build stronger, more supportive relationships with others. When we stop competing with others in our minds, we are free to admire them, learn from them, and be inspired by them. A personal experience I had illustrates the value of this principle. I once found myself feeling envious of a friend who seemed to effortlessly achieve the career milestones that I had been striving for. Initially, I allowed myself to feel inadequate, questioning my path and wondering why I hadn't reached the same level of success. However, after reflecting on this feeling, I recognized that this envy was a sign of my ambition and desire for growth. Instead of allowing that feeling to grow into resentment, I decided to channel it into admiration. I looked at my friend's journey with fresh eyes. What did they do differently? How did they approach their work? I realized that they were consistently hardworking, had built strong relationships in their field, and took calculated risks that paid off. Instead of feeling less than me, I started to see their success as a blueprint I could follow. I sought advice from them, asked about their experiences, and began incorporating some of their habits and strategies into my career path. Over time, I found that the more I focused on improving myself and learning from others, the less space envy took up in my life. My focus shifted from comparing myself to others to being inspired by them. I didn't feel threatened by their success anymore. Instead, I felt motivated to improve my skills and pursue my goals with greater clarity and purpose. As a result, my professional life began to flourish, and I felt a deeper sense of fulfillment that came from growth, not from comparison. The beauty of this transformation is that it's not just about achieving success in external terms. It's also about fostering inner peace and contentment. When we release envy and turn it into inspiration, we let go of the toxic cycle of comparison, and we start to focus on what we can control, our growth, and our journey. This shift in mindset enables us to cultivate gratitude for what we already have and recognize the abundance of opportunities around us. We no longer measure our worth by how we stack up against others. Instead, we focus on our potential and how we can become better versions of ourselves. A well-known Buddhist teaching by the great teacher Shantideva speaks to this shift in perspective. May all beings be happy. May all beings be without disease. May all beings experience the sensation of auspiciousness. May nobody suffer in any way. This verse highlights the importance of compassion and the idea of wishing others well, even those who might evoke feelings of envy. When we see someone's success not as a threat, but as a sign of what's possible, we cultivate the ability to celebrate their achievements and, in turn, create space for our success. This mindset shift helps us move beyond envy and towards a greater sense of collective joy and personal fulfillment. Principle 4. Cultivate self-discipline while embracing compassion for others. In Buddhism, a delicate balance is encouraged between self-discipline and compassion toward others. The idea is to hold ourselves to high standards, striving for personal growth and excellence, while simultaneously practicing empathy and understanding toward the shortcomings and mistakes of those around us. Buddha's teachings on this balance are rooted in the deep understanding that personal growth does not need to come at the expense of others' well-being. He reminds us, you as much as anybody in the entire universe deserve your love and affection. This quote reinforces the importance of loving and nurturing ourselves, but also extends that love and compassion to others, knowing that we are all imperfect beings on a shared journey of growth. At its core, this principle emphasizes that cultivating self-discipline is essential for our personal growth and success. But it also highlights that true growth is not just an internal pursuit. It must be expressed outwardly through our interactions with others. When we hold ourselves to high standards, we are better able to set an example, take responsibility for our actions, and pursue self-improvement. But simultaneously, when we embrace compassion for others, we recognize their imperfections and extend the same understanding to them that we extend to ourselves. This creates a harmonious balance that fosters both personal and collective well-being. The importance of self-discipline in this practice is undeniable. Without self-discipline, we risk becoming complacent, undirected, or stagnant in our personal growth. Buddhist teachings emphasize that the mind, when undisciplined, can lead to harmful actions, negative thoughts, and unproductive behaviors. To move forward on our spiritual and personal journeys, we must learn to master our minds and actions. This involves setting clear intentions, sticking to a path of consistent effort, and practicing mindfulness and meditation to cultivate awareness. By developing self-discipline, we create a foundation for achieving our goals, whether they be material, intellectual, or spiritual. However, this self-discipline is not about being harsh with ourselves or adopting an unrealistic pursuit of perfection. Rather, it is about developing a healthy sense of responsibility toward our growth and well-being. For example, if we want to develop a new skill or habit, such as daily meditation or learning a new language, it requires commitment, focus, and at times, self-restraint. We need to be disciplined enough to push through difficulties or moments of resistance. This discipline helps us to stay on track and reminds us that the road to mastery and improvement is not always easy, but it is always rewarding. At the same time, we must embrace compassion for others. This doesn't mean excusing harmful behavior or allowing others to take advantage of us, but it does mean approaching others with kindness and empathy and recognizing their humanity and struggles. This is particularly relevant in a world where people often hold harsh judgments of others' actions, especially when those actions do not align with their values or expectations. Buddhism teaches that no one is perfect and that everyone carries their burdens, which often manifest as flaws, weaknesses, or mistakes. Recognizing this shared human experience allows us to approach others with an open heart and mind, rather than a critical or judgmental eye. A powerful example of someone who exemplifies this principle is Thich Nhat Hanh, a revered Vietnamese Zen Buddhist monk known for his teachings on mindfulness and compassion. He often spoke of the importance of understanding our shared humanity and practicing both self-discipline and compassion. Thich Nhat Hanh emphasized that self-discipline is not about harshness toward oneself, but rather about practicing mindfulness with every action, word, and thought. Through mindfulness, we can cultivate a deeper awareness of ourselves and others, which allows us to act with greater understanding and compassion. He also reminded us that while it's important to discipline ourselves, we must also recognize that everyone we encounter is carrying their burdens. His teachings encourage us to practice patience and empathy and to remember that compassion is an essential part of the path toward true enlightenment. In practical terms, the principle of cultivating self-discipline while embracing compassion for others can be applied in many aspects of daily life. For instance, in a work setting, we might be strict with ourselves about maintaining a high level of performance. We set personal goals and strive to meet deadlines, ensuring that we give our best effort to the tasks at hand. At the same time, we must also recognize that our colleagues have different experiences, skills, and challenges. Rather than becoming frustrated when someone makes a mistake or fails to meet expectations, we practice tolerance and understanding. Perhaps they are facing personal difficulties that we don't know about, or maybe they simply need more time to develop their skills. By extending compassion and offering support, we create a more positive work environment and strengthen our relationships with others. Another area where this balance is vital is in our relationships. Often, we hold high expectations for those we love, family members, friends, or romantic partners, and we may become upset when they fall short of our expectations. We may want them to behave in certain ways, act with more patience, or do things differently. However, if we hold ourselves to the same standards of tolerance and compassion that we hold for others, we create a space where both parties can grow and evolve without fear of judgment. By being strict with ourselves in terms of communication, emotional regulation, and honesty, we set a healthy example for those around us. But when those same individuals make mistakes, we approach them with empathy, understanding that they are also learning, growing, and dealing with their challenges. A powerful example of embracing both self-discipline and compassion can be seen in the teachings of the Buddha himself. Despite his strict commitment to the practice of meditation, mindfulness, and self-control, the Buddha also spent his life teaching others about the importance of kindness, compassion, and non-judgment. His own life is a testimony to the fact that the path to enlightenment requires both personal effort and the ability to extend grace to others. He showed that true wisdom lies not only in mastering ourselves, but in recognizing the interconnectedness of all beings and treating others with respect, regardless of their perceived flaws or mistakes. This principle of balance also applies when we are faced with challenges or conflicts in our own lives. It's easy to fall into the trap of criticizing others or becoming frustrated when things don't go as planned. But by maintaining self-discipline, we can approach these situations with a clear and calm mind. We take responsibility for our actions and responses, knowing that we cannot control the behavior of others. However, we can control how we choose to react. By cultivating tolerance and compassion for others, we allow ourselves to remain open, patient, and understanding, even when others may be acting in ways we don't agree with. In essence, Cultivating self-discipline while embracing compassion for others is about developing a holistic approach to personal growth. It is about holding ourselves to high standards while also recognizing that we are all imperfect and that every person we encounter is deserving of understanding and empathy. This balance not only allows us to develop more meaningful relationships, but it also leads to a deeper sense of inner peace and fulfillment. By practicing both self-discipline and compassion, we move closer to the ultimate goal of living with wisdom, love, and harmony in every aspect of our lives. Principle 5. Your peace is in your hands. The idea that no one can hurt you without your consent is a profound principle in Buddhist philosophy, which teaches us that while external events may cause pain, it is ultimately our reaction that determines the extent of that hurt. Buddha's wisdom resonates in his words, "No one saves us but ourselves. No one can, and no one may. We must walk the path." These words remind us that while we cannot always control what others say or do, we always have control over how we respond. At its core, this principle emphasizes that the power to choose our emotional responses lies within us. Others' actions may trigger emotional reactions, but it is our decision whether to let those actions affect us deeply or to remain unaffected. This distinction is crucial to understanding personal sovereignty. External circumstances, including insults, criticisms, or negative treatment, may indeed shake us temporarily, but how we respond to these challenges determines whether they hurt us in the long term. This mindset encourages emotional resilience. Just as a tree withstands the force of a powerful wind by flexing but not breaking, we too can bend in the face of adversity without losing our peace. Life will present obstacles, and people may treat us in ways that hurt or disappoint, but cultivating inner peace and self-awareness allows us to remain grounded. Developing a strong sense of self means that we are no longer at the mercy of others' actions or opinions. A key component of this principle is understanding the nature of suffering and attachment. Buddha taught that suffering arises from attachment to how we believe things should be, or to our desires for approval or validation from others. When someone criticizes us or treats us poorly, the initial sting comes from our attachment to our ego or sense of self-worth. If we believe that we need others' approval to feel good about ourselves, any form of criticism will feel like an attack. However, if we detach from these external validations and focus on our intrinsic self-worth, we can prevent the criticism from having a lasting emotional impact. Similarly, in our own lives, when we allow others' words or behaviors to disturb our inner peace, we are, in effect, consenting to be hurt. It's easy to fall into the trap of blaming others for our pain, whether it's a colleague who is rude, a friend who betrays us, or a family member who criticizes us. However, the practice of mindfulness invites us to examine our reactions more carefully. If we can recognize that our hurt feelings stem from our attachment to specific expectations or beliefs about ourselves, we are better able to distance ourselves from those emotions and choose a healthier response. For those of us who are navigating everyday challenges, this principle offers a liberating perspective. It is easy to feel like we are victims of the words and actions of others. Whether it's an unkind remark, a social media post, or a hurtful behavior, it's natural to feel wounded. However, this principle invites us to take back control of our emotional world. When we stop allowing others to dictate our emotional reactions, we reclaim our power. We realize that we are not passive recipients of external events, but active participants in how we interpret and respond to those events. The key to practicing this principle lies in cultivating emotional self-sufficiency. This does not mean that we become indifferent to others or shut ourselves off from relationships. Rather, it means that we anchor ourselves in a deep understanding of our own worth and resilience. We learn to respond with love, kindness, or detachment rather than reacting with anger, bitterness, or sadness. When we recognize that we are the ones who ultimately choose how to feel, we free ourselves from the emotional control of others. This process of building resilience involves consistent practice. It requires developing a mindset that does not take things personally and instead recognizes that others' actions are more often a reflection of their inner struggles than a judgment of us. When we stop viewing external criticism or negativity as a personal affront, we can move through life with a sense of ease and peace. For me, this principle was a turning point. I once allowed a manager's harsh words to define my self-worth, letting his criticism affect my confidence and peace of mind. However, through practicing mindfulness and shifting my focus back to my sense of self, I realized that my emotional state was mine to govern. By detaching from the need for external approval, I began to trust my own judgment and inner strength, which made it much easier to maintain peace regardless of others' opinions or actions. In sum, the principle of "your peace is in your hands" encourages us to recognize the immense power we have over our emotional responses. By cultivating a strong sense of self and inner peace, we create a foundation that allows us to weather life's challenges with grace. Just as a tree withstands the wind without breaking, we too can bend in the face of adversity and emerge unscathed, rooted in our peace. Principle 6. Embrace life as it is. In Buddhist philosophy, the practice of acceptance is a powerful tool for cultivating peace and contentment. Acceptance does not mean resignation, nor does it signify passive submission to life's challenges. Instead, it invites us to engage with life as it is, without unnecessary resistance or judgment. Buddha's timeless teaching, accept what is, let go of what was, and have faith in what will be, highlights the importance of embracing the present moment without clinging to the past or worrying about the future. Acceptance, in this context, is about making peace with the reality of our circumstances and learning to respond with clarity and wisdom. It is an act of releasing the tension that comes from resisting what is beyond our control. Often, when faced with difficulty or discomfort, our natural inclination is to push back, fight against the situation, or wish for things to be different. This resistance consumes our energy, leaving us frustrated, exhausted, and mentally drained. But when we shift our focus to acceptance, we conserve that energy for constructive action rather than futile resistance. The power of acceptance lies in its ability to free us from unnecessary suffering. In Buddhism, suffering is seen as a result of attachment to things, people, or expectations that are outside of our control. When we resist the inevitable changes and challenges that life brings, we only prolong our suffering. But by embracing life as it is, we stop fighting against the current and allow ourselves to float more easily through the inevitable ups and downs of life. One of the greatest examples of acceptance in Buddhism is found in the life of the Buddha himself. After his enlightenment, the Buddha faced many challenges, including resistance from those who did not understand his teachings and persecution from rulers who were threatened by his growing influence. Yet, despite these difficulties, the Buddha remained steadfast in his acceptance of the situation. He did not try to force others to believe in his teachings, nor did he try to change the external circumstances. Instead, he focused on cultivating his inner peace and wisdom, accepting the world as it was while continuing to share his insights with those who were ready to listen. The power of acceptance does not mean that we passively accept injustice, suffering, or harm. Rather, it means that we acknowledge and come to terms with the fact that certain things are beyond our control. For example, we cannot control how others behave or the challenges that arise in life. What we can control is our response to those situations. By accepting reality as it is, we take the first step toward finding peace within ourselves and the strength to take positive action where it is possible. Acceptance is also a way of releasing the burden of judgment. When we are constantly judging ourselves or others, we are investing mental and emotional energy into creating resistance. We judge people for their mistakes, we judge ourselves for our failures, and we judge situations for not unfolding the way we expect. This judgment only serves to build walls between us and the present moment, making it harder to find peace. But when we practice acceptance, we stop making judgments about what is right or wrong, and instead, we simply allow life to unfold as it is, without adding extra layers of mental suffering. One of the ways to practice acceptance is by focusing on mindfulness. Mindfulness allows us to observe the present moment without becoming attached to it or trying to change it. In the same way that a leaf drifts gently on the surface of a river, we can learn to let go of the need to control and simply experience life as it comes. By being present in the moment and accepting it without judgment, we open ourselves to clarity, peace, and wisdom. The challenge for many people lies in differentiating between acceptance and passivity. Acceptance does not mean that we give up on improving our circumstances or that we stop striving for better outcomes. Instead, it means that we meet life where it is, acknowledging the present situation with honesty and wisdom. From there, we can take mindful, deliberate steps toward creating positive change without being overwhelmed by frustration or fear. I have personally found that embracing life as it is, rather than resisting or denying the challenges I face, has brought me greater peace and resilience. I remember a time when I was confronted with a difficult change in my life that I did not want to accept. I fought against it, feeling like the world was unfair and that I was being forced into an unwanted situation. However, after some reflection and guidance, I realized that acceptance did not mean I had to approve of the change or like it. It meant that I needed to acknowledge the reality of the situation and find a way to move forward with wisdom and grace. This shift in mindset was liberating. By accepting the change, I stopped expending unnecessary energy on resistance. I began to focus on how I could adapt and respond to the situation in a way that aligned with my values and goals. The change, which once seemed overwhelming, became something I could navigate with a clearer mind and a more peaceful heart. The concept of acceptance also extends to our relationships with others. People will inevitably let us down or act in ways that we do not understand. It is easy to hold on to resentment or anger when we feel wronged by others. However, acceptance allows us to see that people act based on their own experiences, struggles, and limitations. By embracing others as they are, we free ourselves from the burden of judgment and expectation. This doesn't mean that we tolerate harmful behavior, but it does mean that we accept people's imperfections and choose how we respond to them. Ultimately, embracing life as it is creates space for personal growth. It allows us to focus our energy on what truly matters, cultivating inner peace, improving ourselves, and engaging meaningfully with the world around us. When we stop resisting life and start accepting it, we open ourselves up to the wisdom that comes with understanding and the serenity that comes with letting go. In conclusion, embracing life as it is a powerful practice that can transform the way we relate to the world and ourselves. By accepting what is, letting go of what was, and having faith in what will be, we can navigate life's challenges with greater ease, clarity, and peace. Acceptance is not about resignation. It is about choosing to meet life with openness and wisdom, trusting that everything is part of the unfolding path of our journey. Principle 7. Embrace the natural flow of life. Buddhism encourages us to live in harmony with nature and its inherent rhythms, as doing so brings a sense of balance and groundedness. One of the Buddhist teachings, just as a candle cannot burn without fire, men cannot live without a spiritual life, highlights the vital connection between our spiritual nature and the natural world. Just as fire is essential for a candle's flame, spirituality is an essential component of our human existence. The Buddhist perspective teaches us that by aligning ourselves with the natural world, we not only experience a deeper sense of connection with the universe, but also gain profound insights into life cycles. The natural world is ever-changing and constantly evolving through seasons, weather, and ecosystems. These natural cycles mirror the human experience. Periods of growth, decay, and renewal are inherent to life. By observing the world around us, we can learn to embrace these cycles rather than resist them. For instance, the changing of the seasons can serve as a reminder of the impermanence of all things. Just as flowers bloom and wither, our lives also experience times of growth, transformation, and eventual rest. Buddhism teaches us to cultivate mindfulness and awareness, and one way to achieve this is by aligning ourselves with the natural rhythms of the world. In our fast-paced, technology-driven society, we often forget the importance of slowing down and connecting with the natural world. This disconnection from nature can lead to feelings of imbalance, stress, and discontentment. But when we make the effort to reconnect with nature, whether by spending time outdoors or simply attuning our daily routines to the natural world, we begin to experience a deeper sense of peace and tranquility. The Buddha himself spent a significant amount of time in nature, often retreating to the forests and fields to meditate and reflect. His deep connection with nature is reflected in many of his teachings. He observed that all life is interconnected, and by recognizing this, we can better appreciate our place in the world. This interconnectedness is a reminder that our actions have consequences, not just for ourselves, but for all living beings. When we live in harmony with nature, we develop a greater sense of responsibility for the world around us and a deeper understanding of our interconnectedness with all forms of life. One of the most important lessons that nature teaches us is the inevitability of change. The seasons change, the trees shed their leaves, and the animals adapt to the rhythms of the earth. Change is constant and natural, yet many of us resist it. Whether it's the aging process, the end of a relationship, or a career shift, change can be uncomfortable and challenging. But if we look at nature, we see that change is not something to fear. Rather, it is a natural part of life's cycle. Just as a tree must shed its leaves to prepare for new growth, we too must let go of certain aspects of ourselves or our lives to make room for new possibilities. By adopting the natural rhythms of life, we can learn to align our actions with the flow of the world around us. For example, rising with the sun and resting when it sets is a simple yet profound practice. The natural light cycle has a profound impact on our circadian rhythms, which govern our sleep-wake patterns and overall well-being. By syncing our habits with the natural cycle of the day, we not only improve our physical health, but also foster a deeper sense of inner balance. This practice, while simple, can serve as a reminder that we are not separate from nature, we are part of it. Incorporating nature into our daily routine can also serve as a form of mindfulness practice. When we step outside, we can engage our senses in the present moment. The warmth of the sun on our skin, the scent of fresh air, the sound of birds chirping, or the sight of a blooming flower. These simple sensory experiences bring us back to the present, allowing us to let go of distractions and connect with the world as it is. In these moments, we find peace and clarity, much like the Buddha did in his moments of solitude in nature. Beyond personal well-being, embracing the natural flow of life helps us develop resilience in the face of adversity. The natural world does not resist change, it flows with it. This fluidity allows nature to weather storms, endure droughts, and regenerate after periods of hardship. Similarly, when we learn to flow with life's inevitable changes, we build resilience. Instead of fighting against the challenges we face, we can accept them and find ways to adapt, much like a river carving its path through the land over time. The practice of aligning with nature's rhythms also fosters gratitude. We often take the beauty of nature for granted, but when we take the time to truly appreciate it, we begin to cultivate a deep sense of thankfulness for the world around us. The Buddha taught that gratitude is a powerful antidote to suffering, as it shifts our focus from what we lack to what we have. By noticing the simple beauty in nature, the rustling of leaves, the blooming of flowers, the rising of the sun, we can cultivate a sense of awe and appreciation that nourishes our soul. In my own life, I have found that spending time in nature is a crucial part of my spiritual practice. Whether it's walking through a forest, sitting by the ocean, or simply observing the stars at night, nature has a calming effect that helps me reconnect with myself and with the universe. Nature teaches us to slow down, to be present, and to appreciate the simple beauty of life. I have found that these moments of stillness in nature allow me to reflect, recharge, and approach life's challenges with a clearer mind and a more open heart. In addition to its calming effects, nature also offers valuable lessons in impermanence. The changing seasons, the growth and decay of plants, and the cycles of the moon all remind us that everything in life is transient. Just as the earth undergoes constant transformation, so too do we. The more we can embrace these cycles of change, the more we can flow with the natural rhythms of life, allowing us to experience greater peace, balance, and resilience. Incorporating the teachings of Buddhism into our relationship with nature encourages us to live consciously, with a deep understanding of our connection to all life. As we embrace the natural flow of life, we recognize that we are not separate from the world around us, but an integral part of it. When we live in harmony with nature, we live in harmony with ourselves, and this alignment brings us closer to the peace and wisdom that Buddha himself embodied. Principle 8. Live with integrity and moral clarity. In Buddhism, ethical living is not just a set of guidelines. It is a central tenet that influences every aspect of our lives. Buddha taught that our thoughts shape our actions, and our actions shape our destiny. This means that when we adhere to values like honesty, compassion, and respect, we create positive karma, which influences not only our own well-being, but also the well-being of those around us. Ethical behavior helps us stay aligned with our true self and cultivate a sense of peace that comes from living in accordance with moral principles. The concept of ethics in Buddhism is deeply rooted in the belief that our thoughts are powerful. According to the Buddha, our mind is the forerunner of all our actions. What we think influences what we say and do. Therefore, cultivating ethical conduct begins with being mindful of our thoughts. By consciously choosing thoughts that are rooted in kindness, understanding, and respect, we naturally move toward actions that are aligned with ethical principles. Ethical living is not about perfection or judgment. Rather, it is about intention. It's about choosing to act with integrity, compassion, and wisdom, even when it's difficult. Buddha's teachings emphasize the importance of right intention, which is an essential part of the Noble Eightfold Path. This principle encourages us to live in a way that reflects our highest values and moral aspirations. Whether it's in our personal relationships, in our workplace, or in our interactions with the world at large, living ethically creates a foundation of trust and respect that naturally shields us from negativity and harmful consequences. One of the key benefits of ethical living is the cultivation of a clear conscience. When we act with integrity and in alignment with our values, we reduce the inner turmoil that arises from dishonesty or harmful actions. Guilt, shame, and regret are emotions that often emerge when we act in ways that go against our ethical principles. But when we make decisions that are in line with what we know to be right, we create peace within ourselves. This peace allows us to move through life with greater ease, knowing that our actions are in harmony with our values. Furthermore, ethical living strengthens our moral character, making us more resilient in the face of challenges. Life is full of difficulties, conflicts with others, disappointments, and situations that test our patience and integrity. In these moments, our ethical foundation helps guide us toward making decisions that reflect our highest aspirations. For example, when faced with a difficult decision, an individual who is committed to ethical living will choose the path that is truthful, compassionate, and respectful, even if it is the harder choice. In addition to internal peace and personal resilience, ethical living also enhances our relationships with others. When we practice honesty, kindness, and respect, we create an environment of trust and mutual understanding. People are naturally drawn to those who embody these qualities because they feel safe and valued in their presence. As we focus on moral behavior, we find that our relationships become more harmonious and less fraught with misunderstanding or conflict. Take the example of a well-known Buddhist figure, Thich Nhat Hanh, a Vietnamese Zen master, poet, and peace activist. Thich Nhat Hanh is widely respected not only for his teachings on mindfulness, but also for his unwavering commitment to ethical living. Throughout his life, he exemplified qualities like compassion, peace, and nonviolence. He demonstrated how living with integrity can create ripples of peace that extend far beyond the individual. His actions, whether in his teachings, his activism for peace, or his approach to daily life, embody the profound impact of ethical living. Thich Nhat Hanh's focus on mindfulness in every moment is a powerful illustration of how ethical living begins with awareness and intention. But the importance of ethical living goes beyond the well-known figures of Buddhism. It is something that can be practiced by anyone, regardless of their background or circumstances. The practice of ethical living doesn't require grand gestures. It can be seen in small, everyday actions. Whether it's choosing to speak kindly, extending understanding to others, or being honest in our dealings, each action that aligns with ethical principles builds the foundation of a life lived with integrity. In my own experience, I have found that when I focus on ethical living, I experience a greater sense of harmony and peace. At one point in my life, I struggled with feelings of self-doubt and anxiety. Part of this stemmed from the dissonance between my actions and my values. However, as I began to focus more on living with honesty, kindness, and respect for others, I started to notice a shift. I felt more at peace with myself, knowing that I was living in accordance with my moral beliefs. This shift in perspective not only helped me feel more grounded, but also improved my relationships with others. People began to trust me more, and I found myself feeling more connected to those around me. Furthermore, ethical living serves as a powerful tool for cultivating wisdom. When we act with integrity, we align ourselves with our highest understanding of what is right, which enables us to make wiser decisions. By consistently practicing ethical conduct, we become more attuned to the needs of others, the world around us, and our own inner wisdom. This heightened awareness and discernment allow us to respond to life's challenges with clarity and compassion. The benefits of focusing on ethical living extend beyond the individual. As we align our actions with integrity, we become part of a larger collective effort to create a more compassionate and just society. By embodying values such as honesty, respect, and kindness, we inspire others to do the same, creating a ripple effect that has the potential to impact the broader community. Ethical living is not just about following rules. It is about living with awareness and intention, making choices that align with our values, and cultivating the qualities that lead to a peaceful and meaningful life. When we focus on ethical living, we not only enhance our own lives, but contribute to the well-being of the world around us. It is a path that requires mindfulness, commitment, and the courage to live according to our highest principles. By doing so, we create a life that is grounded in integrity, peace, and wisdom. Principle 9. Cultivate an attitude of gratitude. Gratitude is a powerful force in Buddhism, seen as a transformative practice that shifts our focus from what we lack to what we already possess. Buddha highlighted the importance of gratitude, advising, "Let us rise and be thankful, for if we didn't learn a lot today, at least we learned a little." This statement underscores the idea that gratitude is not dependent on grand events or achievements, but on recognizing the value in everyday moments. When we consciously practice gratitude, we turn our attention to the abundance around us, no matter how small the blessings may seem. It is not about denying the difficulties or challenges we face, but rather about training our minds to see beyond them and appreciate the positive aspects of life. Whether it's the warmth of a cup of tea, a kind gesture from a stranger, or simply having a roof over our heads, acknowledging these small joys fosters a sense of well-being and contentment. This practice strengthens our emotional resilience, allowing us to better navigate life's ups and downs. Gratitude has a remarkable ability to shield us from negativity. When we focus on what we are grateful for, we naturally divert our attention away from complaints, dissatisfaction, and regret. In this way, gratitude acts as a protective shield, helping us maintain a positive outlook even during difficult times. It helps us cultivate a mindset that is not easily swayed by the inevitable challenges life throws our way. Instead of fixating on what is lacking or what has gone wrong, we learn to embrace what is good and worthwhile in the present moment. Gratitude also plays a critical role in building and nurturing relationships. When we express appreciation for the people in our lives, we strengthen those bonds. Buddha's teachings emphasize the importance of cultivating loving kindness, and practicing gratitude is one of the simplest yet most effective ways to express this love. By recognizing the value in others, whether it's their kindness, support, or simply their presence, we create a positive, affirming environment that fosters connection and mutual respect. In terms of personal growth, gratitude helps us shift our mindset from one of scarcity to one of abundance. When we are grateful, we recognize that we already have everything we need to lead a fulfilling life. It allows us to stop seeking external validation or constantly striving for more and, instead, find contentment in the present moment. This shift in perspective can lead to greater peace and happiness as we stop measuring our worth by what we lack and start appreciating what we already have. On a personal level, practicing gratitude daily has had a profound impact on my life. I have found that when I make a conscious effort to acknowledge even the smallest moments of joy, it dramatically shifts my perspective. For instance, when I wake up in the morning, I now take a moment to appreciate the simple things: the sunlight streaming through the window, the warmth of the bed, or the fact that I have another day to live fully. These moments, though seemingly trivial, have a compounding effect over time, reinforcing my sense of peace and contentment. In my relationships, I've also noticed how practicing gratitude has improved my interactions with others. I now make a habit of expressing appreciation for the people in my life, whether it's thanking a friend for their support or acknowledging the kindness of a coworker. This simple act of gratitude has deepened my connections with others, creating an environment of mutual respect and positivity. One of the greatest benefits of practicing gratitude, however, it can keep us grounded. In a world where it's easy to become overwhelmed by external pressures, focusing on gratitude helps anchor us in the present moment. It encourages us to see the world through a lens of abundance rather than scarcity, and this shift allows us to find peace even in the most chaotic of circumstances. Gratitude, in the end, is a practice that encourages us to cultivate contentment and peace, no matter what life may bring. It teaches us that happiness does not come from accumulating possessions or achievements, but from appreciating the simple, everyday gifts that surround us. By adopting an attitude of gratitude, we move toward a life that is filled with joy, compassion, and resilience. Principle 10. Embrace life's flow and release the need for control. In Buddhism, attachment is identified as the root cause of suffering. Our desire for control over specific outcomes or events creates a space for potential disappointment. Buddhist teachings make it clear that when we cling too tightly to expectations or fixed results, we are more likely to suffer when things don't go as planned. The path to inner peace involves letting go of these attachments and trusting that life will unfold in its own time and way. The principle of embracing life's flow without trying to control every detail doesn't mean being passive or indifferent. Rather, it encourages us to accept that many aspects of life are beyond our control, and it is in accepting this that we free ourselves from unnecessary suffering. The concept is not about sitting back and doing nothing, but rather about understanding that we are part of a greater flow, a larger process that we can't always predict or direct. This practice of letting go is rooted in trust. Trusting the process means recognizing that life, like a river, will continue to move and evolve, even when we can't see the entire course. Instead of trying to force every aspect of our lives to match our expectations, we learn to align with life's natural rhythms and trust that everything will unfold as it should. One of the best examples of embracing this principle, without clinging to control, is the story of Pema Chodron, a renowned American Tibetan Buddhist nun, teacher, and author. Pema Chodron teaches extensively about the practice of surrendering to life's challenges and embracing uncertainty. In her book, When Things Fall Apart, she talks about how our human tendency is to resist suffering, but it is through acceptance of suffering that we find true freedom. She writes, "When we begin to accept things as they are, we discover that life is not an enemy to be fought, but an experience to be lived." Pema Chodron emphasizes that it is through letting go of the need for control, particularly in difficult situations, that we cultivate wisdom and resilience. Another significant figure whose life exemplifies the letting go of control is Mahagasananda, a Cambodian Buddhist monk who dedicated his life to peace and reconciliation. During the Khmer Rouge regime, he witnessed the devastating impact of violence and loss. However, instead of clinging to bitterness or revenge, he chose to live with acceptance, trusting in the process of healing and peace-building. Mahagasananda's teachings remind us that peace comes not from forcing change or outcomes, but from surrendering to the wisdom of each moment and trusting that healing will unfold in its own time. For me personally, letting go of control has been an incredibly transformative practice. I've spent much of my life trying to control outcomes, whether it's in my career, relationships, or personal goals. I used to worry constantly about whether things were going as planned. This intense need for control, however, only added layers of anxiety and stress. I found that the more I tried to force situations to align with my desires, the more resistant life became. Through mindfulness and reflection, I began to realize that life has its timing, and that often the best course of action is to act with intention but let go of the need for specific results. This shift has made me more present and patient. I started to embrace each moment, whether it was a success or a failure, as part of a larger process. I found that trusting the flow of life allowed me to navigate challenges with more grace and less fear of the unknown. The concept of releasing control also ties into the Buddhist principle of impermanence, anicca. Everything in life is transient. Situations change, people come and go, and the circumstances we face today will not be the same tomorrow. The key is to let go of the attachment to stability or permanence and accept that change is inevitable. By embracing this, we free ourselves from the suffering that arises when things do not stay the same. Take, for example, the experience of Buddha himself. Before he became enlightened, he was born as Siddhartha Gautama, the son of a king, and lived a life of luxury. Yet, when Siddhartha encountered the realities of sickness, aging, and death, he realized that all things are impermanent. The realization that he could not control these aspects of life propelled him on a journey of self-discovery and deep spiritual understanding. His quest for enlightenment was rooted in surrendering the need for control over external circumstances and looking within to find peace. In Buddhism, the concept of trusting the process is a reminder that all things unfold according to their natural order. Sometimes we are not meant to control everything. Sometimes we are meant to be patient, to breathe, and to allow the universe to reveal its wisdom to us. Just as a flower does not hurry to bloom but waits for the right conditions, we, too, must wait for the right time and conditions to grow and evolve. In practice, embracing this principle means letting go of rigid expectations and becoming comfortable with uncertainty. It's about understanding that life doesn't always follow a predictable path, and while we can take intentional actions, we must also be willing to release attachment to the specific outcomes we envision. For instance, I've learned that when faced with uncertainty, whether it's a job change, a personal decision, or a relationship challenge, letting go of the need to control every aspect of the situation allows me to stay grounded and make better decisions. Instead of worrying about how things will turn out, I focus on my intentions and let go of the rest. This practice of trust and surrender brings peace and freedom, knowing that we don't have to carry the burden of controlling every detail of life. In summary, embrace life's flow and release the need for control teaches us the value of surrendering our attachment to outcomes. By trusting the process, we are able to experience life more fully, without the burden of trying to control every aspect of it. This Buddhist practice encourages us to align with the natural flow of life, trusting that we will be guided through each moment with wisdom and peace. As we've explored today, the 10 transformative Buddhist principles are powerful tools for cultivating a state of mind that remains untouched by the chaos and challenges of the world around us. These teachings guide us toward a life of inner peace, resilience, and unwavering strength. The key takeaway here is simple yet profound. True peace is not something we find in the external world. It comes from within. By incorporating these principles into our daily lives, we can create a sanctuary within ourselves, no matter what life throws our way. Now it's your turn. Take these teachings, reflect on them, and start practicing them in your own life. Remember, every step you take towards inner peace is a step towards greater happiness, clarity, and serenity. If you found value in this video and want to continue your journey towards a peaceful and purposeful life, please like, subscribe, and share it with others who might benefit. Let's spread the message of peace and mindfulness together. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.